Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be tackling a subject that I know a lot of people think about, success,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not like just skimming the surface here. Now,
Yeah.
we're going deep,
Right.
exploring like how success connects with human nature
Yeah,
and those everyday challenges we all face
absolutely.
in like this crazy modern world.
Yeah, it's a fascinating connection, isn't it?
It is.
So much of what we label as success is actually tied to our basic instincts and
Uh-huh.
then playing out in a world that's gotten really complex.
Yeah, and to guide us through this, we're turning to an interview with Robert Greene,
Okay.
who you might know from his books like The 48 Laws of Power
Oh, yeah,
and Mastery.
of course.
He's known for really like digging into the sometimes uncomfortable truths about power
Mm-hmm.
and how humans behave.
Yeah.
And this interview is from Stephen Bartlett's YouTube channel, The Diary of a CEO.
Okay.
And he's a successful entrepreneur himself. So,
So
yeah,
it's a good conversation between two people who've achieved things, but in very different ways.
absolutely.
What's great about this interview is that Greene isn't just throwing out theories.
Yeah.
He brings in stories from his own life, historical examples,
Yeah.
even pop culture references
Mm-hmm.
to make these big ideas about success
Yeah.
and a fulfilling life really click.
So what we're doing in this deep dive is pulling out the key insights,
Right.
the stuff you can actually use
Yes.
in your own life.
Exactly. And you might be surprised to find that some ancient wisdom
Yeah.
is incredibly relevant to the struggles we face today.
All right, let's jump in.
Yeah.
One of the first things that really struck me was Greene's focus on finding your life's task.
Okay.
He says it's crucial for feeling truly happy
Mm-hmm.
and fulfilled.
Yeah.
And he's like speaking from experience.
Yes, Greene talks about how lost he felt in his 20s,
Uh-huh.
jumping between jobs he hated. It wasn't until he discovered his purpose, his calling through writing,
Yeah.
that his life really changed.
Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Greene and Bartlett actually offer some really practical ways to figure out what your purpose is.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the archaeological dig approach?
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like digging back into your childhood,
Uh-huh.
uncovering those interests and passions that maybe got buried
Right.
under expectations, or just life happening.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like finding like hidden treasure inside yourself.
Exactly.
But they also say it's not just about nostalgia.
Yeah.
You have to look at those childhood interests through the lens of,
Of who you are now,
yeah,
your skills and experience as an adult.
absolutely.
And they talk about reverse engineering, too.
Mhm.
You look at people you admire,
Yeah.
people who've achieved the success you want,
Yeah.
and try to deconstruct their journey. What were their motivations? What steps did they take?
Right. You can learn a lot from that.
That's so insightful.
Yeah.
And it connects to another big point they bring up,
Okay.
this trap of overplanning and procrastinating.
Yeah.
Greene is a firm believer in learning by doing.
Mm-hmm.
He says that too much planning actually leads to fear of failing.
Yeah.
And in the end, you don't do anything at all.
Right. In fact, Bartlett admits he waited 2.5 years
Wow.
before starting this very podcast.
Oh, wow.
It really highlights how action, even imperfect action,
Right.
beats endlessly planning.
Makes you think how many great ideas we're all sitting on letting fear hold us back.
Absolutely.
Speaking of focus,
Yeah.
that brings us to another common trap,
Okay.
especially for those in their 20s.
Yeah.
It's the lure of money over developing valuable skills.
Yeah.
Right? Greene actually thinks that getting those skills is more important than chasing a big paycheck,
Yeah.
especially early in your career.
Yeah. He even talks about living on almost nothing in London, working a job he didn't like.
But he saw it as an investment in himself,
Yeah.
a time for learning and growing.
Right.
He contrasts that with taking a high-paying corporate job that might offer security,
Right.
but very few opportunities to really learn and grow.
Yeah.
It's a tough choice a lot of young people face.
Mhm.
That big paycheck can be hard to resist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does
That's it.
make you think about long-term goals versus that instant gratification.
Yeah.
And this actually ties into something else Greene talks about,
Okay.
what he calls the dark side of success.
What?
It's this idea that
Yeah.
sometimes negative emotions like insecurity
Mm-hmm.
or even shame
Uh-huh.
can be powerful motivators.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
We usually associate success with positive feelings,
Right.
not those darker ones.
Right.
But Greene argues that everyone have a dark side,
Uh-huh.
and those emotions can fuel our drive to achieve things.
So it's almost like flipping the script
Yeah.
on what we think drives success.
Exactly.
It's not always sunshine and rainbows.
He gives the example of Dov Charney,
Oh, okay.
the founder of American Apparel.
Whose story ultimately ended in scandal, right?
Yes.
And the company went under.
And becomes a cautionary tale.
Right.
Charney's relentless drive for success,
Yeah.
fueled in part by those darker emotions,
What?
eventually led to his downfall.
Right.
It highlights the need for balance.
Yeah.
For knowing when to stop and reassess.
It's that classic idea of, like,
Yeah.
be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Because reaching those external markers of success
Yeah.
can sometimes come at a cost.
Which leads us to another important point that Greene emphasizes,
Okay.
embracing your true intelligence.
Okay.
And he's not just talking about IQ.
Right.
He brings up Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences,
Right.
which identifies different types of intelligence,
Yeah.
like logical, linguistic, interpersonal,
Right.
even spatial and bodily kinesthetic.
So it's acknowledging that intelligence isn't one size fits all.
Right.
There are many ways to be smart.
Exactly. And the key takeaway is that we all have unique strengths.
Right.
Recognizing those strengths
Mhm.
can help us find a path that really fits us,
Uh-huh.
instead of trying to force ourselves into a mold that doesn't work.
Right.
Greene even talks about how realizing he had a strong linguistic intelligence
Mm-hmm.
shaped his career as a writer.
It's like finding that sweet spot where your natural abilities align
Yeah,
with your work.
right.
Right. And speaking of self-awareness, um, Greene and Bartlett also talk about the importance of managing envy,
Oh, yeah.
especially in today's world
Especially.
where everyone's constantly connected.
Yeah, that's so true.
Social media is almost like a highlight reel of
Yeah,
everyone else's best moments.
right.
It's easy to feel inadequate
Uh-huh.
when you're constantly bombarded with that.
Greene actually calls envy
Yeah.
the ugliest emotion.
Wow.
And he argues that it stems from our natural tendency to compare ourselves to others.
Yeah.
It's amplified in our social media age,
Right.
but it's something we've always struggled with.
Yeah.
He doesn't just leave us hanging with that bleak assessment, though.
Oh,
He
wow.
offers some real strategies for
Mhm.
dealing with those envious feelings.
Like, oh,
One of those strategies is to reframe envy as emulation. So instead of letting those feelings eat away at you,
yeah.
use them as motivation
Right.
to improve yourself.
Okay.
Channel that energy into positive action.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's turning a negative into a positive.
Exactly.
Using that energy to fuel your own growth.
Right. He also talks about a practice called mudita.
Have you ever heard of that?
I don't know if you have.
I'm not sure I have.
It's a practice where you actively cultivate joy
Okay.
for the successes of others
Okay.
instead of feeling threatened or envious. You genuinely celebrate their wins. It's about shifting from a competitive mindset to
yeah.
one of abundance.
Okay.
Recognizing that someone else's success doesn't take away
Yeah.
from your own potential.
That's a powerful idea,
Yeah.
especially in a world that often feels so divided and competitive.
Yeah,
Finding joy in other people's successes.
exactly. It's about connection, not competition.
I like that.
And it brings up another challenge that Greene and Bartlett touch on,
Oh?
something that's becoming increasingly prevalent:
What's that?
loneliness,
Yeah.
especially among young men.
It's a serious issue
It is.
and one that's often stigmatized.
Yeah.
People feel ashamed to admit they're lonely.
Greene actually shares his own experiences
Wow.
with loneliness and even suicidal thoughts
Oh, wow.
when he was younger.
Okay.
It's a powerful reminder that even someone who seems to have it all figured out
Yeah.
can struggle with these deep human emotions.
It makes it more relatable.
It does.
More human.
Yes. And they both challenge the stigma around loneliness.
Okay.
They emphasize that solitude can actually be beneficial
Uh-huh.
for self-reflection and growth.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
We need connection,
Yes.
but we also need time alone to process,
Yeah.
to think.
Absolutely. And they offer some practical tips for dealing with loneliness.
Like what?
It's about being proactive,
Okay.
making an effort to connect with others, putting down those devices that can isolate us even further.
Being intentional
Yeah.
about building real-world connections,
Exactly.
not just online ones.
Right, and that leads into another interesting point they bring up.
Okay.
Navigating a world where values are constantly shifting.
Right.
Greene talks about how traditional values and
Yeah.
institutions are eroding, and it can leave people feeling lost and uncertain.
Like the ground is constantly shifting beneath our feet.
Yes, and he
Yeah.
cautions against falling for simple solutions. And charismatic leaders who offer easy answers to complex problems.
Right.
It's something we need to be aware of,
Yeah.
especially now with how quickly information
Right.
and misinformation spreads.
It's about being critical thinkers.
Exactly.
Questioning those easy answers.
Yeah.
And forming our own informed opinions, not just blindly following the crowd,
Yeah.
even if it feels easier.
Exactly. And that ties back to one of Greene's core points.
Okay.
Embracing our true nature.
Okay.
Even the parts that make us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He argues that we often deny certain aspects of who we are.
Okay.
Like our capacity for manipulation.
Right.
Or the fact that we don't always make rational decisions.
Right.
He even talks about narcissism.
Okay.
And how we all have some degree of narcissistic tendencies.
It's a provocative idea,
It is.
but he's not condoning those behaviors.
No.
Instead, he's emphasizing the importance of self-awareness.
Yes.
The more we understand our own flaws and tendencies,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are
Right.
to navigate the complexities of life.
And one of the skills that can help us navigate those complexities is the art of saying less,
Okay.
which is another fascinating point that Greene brings up.
Okay.
He talks about how saying less can actually convey more authority and control.
Okay.
He gives the example of 50 Cent
Go.
and how his silence in a room makes his words,
Mm-hmm.
when he does speak,
Yeah.
that much more impactful.
It's like choosing your moments carefully,
Yes.
making your words count instead of just filling the space with noise.
Right. And he talks about something called a contribution score.
Okay.
It's this idea that carefully choosing when and how you contribute
Mhm.
can actually increase your perceived value in a group.
So it's about being strategic,
Exactly.
not just talking for the sake of talking.
Exactly.
And it highlights another uncomfortable truth that Greene addresses.
Yeah.
The fact that appearances often matter more than substance,
That's true.
at least initially.
Yeah.
It's that old saying,
It is.
you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Right. He acknowledges that it's an unsettling reality,
Yeah.
but people often judge based on appearances
Right.
rather than what's beneath the surface.
Right.
It affects everything from hiring decisions
Yeah.
to how we perceive others in our personal lives.
It's not about being superficial,
Right.
but understanding that presentation matters.
Exactly. It's about putting your best foot forward,
That's right.
even if it involves a bit of acting.
So it's like finding a balance between being authentic
Yeah.
and also understanding the role that presentation plays
Mm-hmm.
in how we're perceived.
Right.
And it sounds like this is something that Greene is exploring further
Yes.
in his upcoming book,
In his upcoming book.
The Law of the Sublime.
He touches on it briefly in the interview,
Okay.
talking about how the book focuses on rediscovering awe and transcendence in a world that's become so dominated by technology and superficiality.
It's like searching for something deeper,
Yeah.
something more meaningful
Mm-hmm.
amidst all the noise and distractions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's saying that even though the world can feel chaotic
Yeah.
and overwhelming,
Yeah.
we can still find those moments of peace
Yeah.
and connection.
And often those moments are found in the simplest things.
Yeah.
Appreciating nature,
Mhm.
having a genuine conversation with someone, taking time for quiet reflection.
So taking a step back and looking at all these threads we've pulled from this interview,
Mm-hmm.
it really seems like it all boils down to a few key things.
Yeah.
Finding your purpose,
Mm.
learning how to manage those difficult emotions we all have,
Yeah.
and navigating a world where things are constantly changing.
It's about recognizing that success isn't just about money or fame
Right.
or those external markers.
Right.
It's about living a life that feels truly meaningful.
And I love the way Greene ends the interview.
Yeah.
He encourages listeners to do this visualization exercise
Okay.
where you imagine yourself 10 years in the future.
Okay.
He asks you to really picture it.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Mm.
Who are you with?
Yeah.
What are those things that truly matter to you
Right.
in that vision of your future self?
It's such a powerful exercise because it forces you to define success
Yeah.
on your own terms,
Right?
not based on what society tells you it should be.
It helps you connect your actions with your values
Mm-hmm.
and create a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
And it's a reminder that even in a world that can feel so complex and challenging,
Yeah,
we have the power to shape our own destinies.
absolutely.
It's about acknowledging those sometimes uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us,
Right.
but it's also about embracing our potential for growth,
Yeah.
for connection,
Then-
for finding meaning and purpose.
So there you have it. We've really gone deep into the mind of Robert Greene,
We have.
exploring his insights on success, human nature,
Yeah,
and the challenges we all face in the modern world.
absolutely.
I'm curious, what stood out to you?
Yeah.
What resonated the most?
What really stuck with you?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
Share your takeaways and keep this conversation going on social media.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep diving deep.